Hey, this is driver 88, and it was about 100 years ago now that I was at university. And what I used to do at university, every single holidays, I would download a full season of Top Gear, because we didn't get it on TV here in Australia, and I would generally get a virus instead, but I would binge watch an entire season on my holidays. At that time, I thought that that was real car journalism. And every time you got a thumbs up or a thumbs down, that was the be all and end all on what a car deserved. But something changed. It was somewhere around 2010 or 2012 that this guy you probably know called Chris Harris came onto the YouTube scene. And for me, that changed absolutely everything. And one of those videos that was my very favorite back in the day was when he sold the GT3 RS 4.0, sadly, to get a 599 GTB. It was that sort of video that ever since I have wanted to drive one of those cars. So we're at Lorbeck Luxury Cars. We're going to drive one, have a look at the used market, the sound, take it for a drive and just see, is a 599 worth it today? It's particularly cheaper than an F12 in the market currently. Let's have a look. So 4,000 examples roughly have made of the 599 over its entire lifetime. Just 30 of them were manuals and the rest were like this, the F1 automated manual style. Now, this car back in 07, 650,000 Australian dollars before options. And this one has a number of options on the interior, particularly the carbon back seats and carbon trim. Today you can have it for $350,000 and there's not too many for sale, but I feel like for some people with low kilometer, really nice examples, they may want to collect them in good time. So what we think of the design, it's almost 20 years old now, so they're becoming arguably vintage, this type of Ferrari. The sail at the rears really is quite unique at the time. Challenge wheels, I'm a huge fan of challenge wheels, though I would always like yellow calipers. You could actually option carbon ceramic brakes all the way back then. I'm not exactly sure how expensive they are. Maybe you could let me know. There's just 10 of these for sale and pretty much all of them are Rosso Corsa or Nero Black. And only one of them currently for sale is the HDTE example, which is generally commanding a lot more money than the standard ones. This car has just 12,000 or so kilometers and it's for sale at our friends at Lorbeck Luxury Cars. So arguably the biggest reason why you would ever consider a 599 is of course the 6-litre V12. The F140 family of engines is possibly going down as one of the greatest family of engines that Ferrari has ever produced. Starting of course with the Enzo, it continues to live on and make more and more power. 610 horsepower here, 335 kilometers per hour as a top speed. And it has been enlarged and upped in its power rating over the years. We thought that it was going to be discontinued with the F12 and then the Superfast we thought it was going to get discontinued, but it just continues to live on and make more power and make everyone's lives all the better. Now we'll listen to this car, but also we've jumped in quite a few F140 engine cars over the years. So we'll listen to an SP3 that we jumped in not long ago. We've got an 812 Competizione Aperta, and of course the 599XX that during the Adelaide Ferrari Festival we were able to sit in on the track. So please enjoy that. Now this being a Grand Tourer, we do have at least enough space for a medium-sized suitcase, but you could put another medium-sized suitcase on the parcel shelf, which would be perfectly usable with the nice leather straps. Now the 599, if you can get the rears of course to hook up, you could get to 0 to 100 in 3.7 seconds. Top RPM of this engine, 8,400. Years later, They've developed it all the way to 9,500 in the Daytona, but this thing just does sound incredible. So I think it's time that we took it for a drive. Change our Manatino to race and listen to the F140. Okay, getting into these sports seats, I absolutely love them. They've got great side bolstering and they keep you in a good seating position. You've got fairly decent visibility out the front too. I feel like this car is going to be a bit of an animal. So we've decided to take this car for a quick drive in a little bit of rain, which is probably not the smartest idea given that we have a 6-litre V12 that has over 600 horsepower and will rip the rears off quite easily with dry tarmac, let alone a bit of rain. But I definitely can see that driving this car day to day would be no problem whatsoever. As I feather the throttle because the wheels are not wanting to play ball. I think this would be a brilliant Grand Tourer taking across a European countryside rather than maybe some potholes on Australian roads. I think one of the best things about driving this car though is definitely the visibility. I know it's not the most important thing, but you have a great amount of visibility out front and the small quarter windows really help. The F1 gearbox, now this is I think one of the main reasons why you'll be paying a fair bit more for an F12 over a 599, and that is we've gone from, of course, an F1 box to a dual clutch box in that car. This is supposed to be making shifts at 0.1 of a second and even faster in the HGTE version. It's certainly not as bad as some people kind of make out, I think. Now with this 6-litre V12, it's got a bit of inertia behind it, so the flywheel doesn't just wind back down so quickly. When you take your foot off the accelerator, the car kind of takes a while to slow down because of all that capacity. You've got a relatively sensitive accelerator pedal, and I'll be honest, I am very focused on keeping this thing straight on wet roads. It is quite entertaining, but also a little bit unnerving. Now, if there's one thing I do kind of like about this car is it takes the bumps relatively well, as it should. Being a Grand Tourer, I kind of like the way that the weight transfers. I've been driving around in sport mode and I am a little bit disappointed in the F1 box, if I'm honest. Like a lot of these cars of this ilk, I think they kind of take a bit of getting used to so you can get the most out of them. It's that first to second, which is not as sure about as I guess I'm used to, because I get to drive all sorts of new cars. But there's a ton of power that's just going to keep building and building that I can feel. At least there's a bit of steering feel though. So many cars I drive these days, you just don't know what the front wheels are doing whatsoever. Into race mode now, and certainly everything wakes up a fair bit. The car doesn't like to be off throttle, which doesn't surprise me at all. But the legs are so long, I can really see this running to 300. Like there's just so much smooth torque. It's not, I guess, as absolutely manic and crazy as the F12. So the Ferrari 599 Fiorano GTB. What did we learn after watching that video so many years ago and then being able to take it for a drive? Well, unfortunately, we had 2 days with this car and both days we got rained out. So having 612 horsepower to the rear wheels with tires that do not really want to get warm, it was quite a sketchy experience. This car needs space and needs dry tarmac. It's definitely kind of fun to shift around, but having the car on a wide open road, and you know, if your budget could stretch for it, the manual version would be incredible. I still think though this is the most affordable V12 F140 based engine that you can buy across the Ferrari range right now on the market. So the one that we drove had just 12,000 kilometers, and I'd definitely recommend, if you're looking at any Ferrari that's 15 plus years old, definitely do all the amount of checks that you can and looking at the car's history. These things are certainly not going to be cheap to service and maintain, but if you experience them properly, and even if you were able to maybe take one on a very sort of 6 out of 10 track day, you'll get the full experience of that V12 engine. That is the car from Lorbeck Luxury Cars, and we've also recently had the 612 Scaglietti that will be coming on the channel next. The 599 has certainly lived up to my expectations, and I'm sure it could be a lot wilder on an Autobahn. So this is Driver 88, and we'll see you next time.